Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another evening. And this evening, we're going to be joined by the amazing, fantastic, and very exciting Rosie Birkett, who we're super happy to have joining us. So that's really, really good. It's going to be a good one. She is such an amazing character. I have loved finding out all about her. Obviously, I know her already. I don't know her, but I know her already. And hi, Jules. Lovely to see you. So she is just amazing. Such an interesting backstory. Rosie, I've invited you to join us. That would be great if you could. Let's see if you're there. No, she did send me a message. Maybe I should have answered it. It's always like this at the beginning, isn't it? Send. I might just send her back a message and say I'm on. She should know. I did say this is how it would happen. We get there, don't we? It's always good fun. I hope everyone's had a nice day. Rosie, there you are. Brilliant. If you request to join me, I've sent you an invite. We can join up and meet each other. So I hope you've all had a great day. I've had a good day, except for I fell off my bike. Ooch, I really hurt myself, but I'm fine. You can see I'm fine. And just had too much in my basket on the front. Oh, we've got the lovely Cherie Denham from the countryside. Hello, Rosie.
Hello.
Hi, how very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm going to caveat this by saying that quite typically my internet has been really annoying this afternoon, and I've turned it off and on again, which is the only thing I really know what to do. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, because my husband's gone out, no other internet is on, so I'm hoping that it's going to be okay.
Okay, fingers crossed. Can I just introduce you? So
Please.
Rosie Birkett is a fire of force when it comes to food, but in a very organic way. I love it. She's now got a monthly feature in the Sunday Times. She writes for BBC Good Food. She writes for Borough Market, their magazine. She writes for various people. Goes on TV. She's done 3 cookery books, and you're going to hear all about it from Rosie. So welcome again. And can we just talk about your beginnings? Because I love your backstory. So you read English at Leeds University, and then you sort of thought, right, I want to get into food. This is my love. Is that how it happened, or you accidentally got a job writing about food?
So it's a bit of both. It's quite convoluted. It's a bit of a higgledy-piggledy journey that I had to get here. But basically, yeah, I did English at Leeds because I'd always liked kind of writing and creative stuff and publishing and media. And I loved my media studies A level. That was kind of the one that really got me. I really enjoyed it. And so I went to Leeds, and then when I finished at Leeds, I ended up working on a magazine, a local magazine. That was my first job, my first proper job out of uni, was working on a sort of small local magazine called The Leeds Guide, which was a bit like Time Out. I mean, it was basically Time Out concept completely.
For Leeds.
But for Leeds. And so I joined this really young, dynamic, incredible team of people there. And we had it was a bit like Press Gang. We just had the best time for 2.5 years. And I was working under 2 amazing editors who basically, because we were such a small team, and I went in as deputy editor, I mean, earning absolutely nothing, but learning so much on the job.
Yeah.
And I did this job with them for that time, and just learned everything from, basically it was pre kind of social media and all of that stuff, but it was or Facebook was still around, was just around, but it was learning everything from the ground up, really. So everything from writing features, interviewing people, doing kind of sponsored advertorial writing, all kinds of stuff, and proofreading. So we had to proofread each other's stuff, and so I got this amazing grounding in editorial, And the editorial values at the magazine were really strong because my editors were amazing. So I learnt so much on that job, and it was just a brilliant couple of years. And then while I was there, I hadn't really got any further ahead in terms of like what's my plan. You know, I didn't really know.
Yeah.
I just knew that I enjoyed it because it was creative and I was working with really interesting people and really talented people. And then while I was there, basically the joke was that I was like the office pig, because basically I've always been like obsessed with food
Yes.
and eating, and at uni like it really got on my housemates' nerves because whenever they were cooking I'd be like up behind them, you know, looking at what they were doing, asking them what they were making, just fascinated always by food. But I never, for some reason, I never thought of that food could be a career for me, because the only experience of professional food industry I'd had been at the hotel I worked at, where the kitchen was not a place that I had to go there because I was waitressing, but the environment in that kitchen was not welcoming, and there were no women cooking, and it didn't at all feel like the food was like hotel food, you know, it wasn't interesting food. And although I was always, you know, out the back trying to get a little morsel from the chef, it didn't ever strike me as a job. Like, it just wasn't something that I saw as being for me at all. And then it was while I was at this magazine that my editor basically was like, "You're so obsessed with food. Whenever someone opens a crisp packet, your eyes flash up, you know, and you're looking over the desk and seeing what flavor it is." And he said, "Why don't you go and do a restaurant review for me?" Because at the magazine had a little food section, a little restaurant review section. So I did that, and I wrote a couple of those for him. And he was basically, I think, testing the water. And then he was like, "You're obviously really keen on this. Will you be a judge?" Because they used to host a food and drink award every year, and he asked me to be a judge on that, which involved going to several restaurants. So that was my first, you know, insight into the fact that I could combine my writing background and my publishing background with food.
What
And
a golden opportunity.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think that was the kind of kernel for the food writing, because I hadn't even considered that it was a job, that food writing was a job.
Okay.
I mean,
Tell me
obviously,
this, is this magazine still going?
it's sadly not.
Oh,
No,
that's a great shame.
It didn't survive post 2008
Okay.
recession.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the people that I worked with on the magazine are doing amazing things, and they're all still. Actually, my two old editors now work at Taylors of Harrogate, Betty's and Taylors, which is
Yes.
has an amazing comms team, and they do like incredible stuff. And then another colleague of mine is just about to publish her first book now, Frizzell. Another colleague of mine is a poet. Sorry, former colleague of mine. But yeah, so it was just a really brilliant environment, and I think it sowed the seed for the food writing.
Yeah, because then you came to London, is that correct?
Yeah. So from there, I basically, after 2.5 years, felt like I wasn't going to go anywhere further than because my editors were never going to leave, obviously, and I want them to anyway. But there was like kind of nowhere to go after this amazing, trajectory on the magazine. So I applied for a job at Caterer and Hotel Keeper, which is
such a great trade magazine, and it's such an interesting way that you have worked with all the chefs and all the back of house people to then come front of house, because that's a fantastic opportunity and grounding.
Yeah, so I was completely astounded that I got the job. I wasn't expecting to get this job. It was a maternity cover job for the deputy features editor, and basically I thought I probably didn't have enough kind of big magazine experience, because this magazine that I'd been on was my experience was thorough, but it was small. It was a small distribution, and like you say, Caterer and Hotel Keeper is an institution. It's a Bible. It's been going for a really long time, and it had a huge team. Well, not a huge team, but a bigger team than I'd come from. But they did take a punt on me, and I did that for I can't remember how many months now, but until Emily came back from maternity leave. And while I was there, I just had this amazing access to, like you say, chefs and restaurants at a particularly exciting time as well, because it was kind of the moment, it was recession, so it was 2008, and it was kind of the moment that a lot of chefs and restaurants were starting to explore kind of more informal ways of cooking, and kind of engaging with the fact that people wanted slightly more informal dining situations, and street food was bubbling away, and it was just kind of a really exciting time. And yeah, I got to go, I mean, I was in my mid-20s living in London, and I got to go to some incredible restaurants and do some amazing interviews with chefs who were inspiring, who I'd never really heard of prior to that, because I had never even been to, I didn't even know about Michelin starred restaurants prior to that, really.
So you were learning on the hoof, and so you had no expectations, and that most probably came across in your writing or something. It was so fresh, and it, as you say, it was a fresh change in restaurants with all these pop-ups and smaller places, without such big glamorous investment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I also got to, I remember going to the Manoir au Quatre Saisons and meeting Benoit Blin, the pastry chef there. And, you know, I got like an hour of his time, and I was in this kitchen with all these amazing chefs in their top hats. And I just got such incredible behind the scenes access to this world that I didn't know anything about. And it really got me. And although I was writing across hotels and pubs and contract catering, it was definitely the restaurant side of things and the food side of things specifically that really hooked me in. And after that, I actually, because my contract ended there when Emily came back from maternity, they were really great, and they kept me on a kind of freelance basis for a while. So that gave me the chance to write for other people, because I had you know, I had some jobs from them, and then I got in touch with the Word of Mouth blog, the Guardian food blog, and I started writing for that as well. And then I started writing for Olive, and then I actually got a job editing a magazine for chefs called Chef Magazine, and I did that for a while. And again, that meant that I got to kind of interview some incredible people. I interviewed René Redzepi in Denmark, and that sort of thing. And, you know, working with the Roux brothers, as in, when I say working with, interviewing them and writing their stories, and, you know, hearing these incredible chefs, and it was really inspiring to me. And so I sort of made the transition from writing about it from a trade point of view to writing about it for consumer.
Yes.
But I think having that kind of trade background in my head really helped me in terms of pitching stories and stuff like that, and understanding what was going on.
Yes, and being quite factual instead of flowery and purple prose. It was more down to earth, because you knew the hard work it was to be a chef from the trade side. And then you went and did a cookery course. What was that you did?
Yeah, so I did, I decided that if I was going to make food writing specifically my specialism for good, which I really wanted to do, I wanted to train, because I was teaching, you know, I've always cooked, and I was cooking loads from cookbooks and teaching myself stuff in my spare time outside of writing and publishing. But I felt like I wanted to give myself a bit of time where I actually paid money to go and learn properly and sort of get the basics down and train from scratch from the beginning, because I was paying rent in London at the time. I couldn't afford to, and I was working and writing, I couldn't afford to kind of go off and work in a restaurant and start at the bottom. And I couldn't go to Leith's, which was always the one that everyone talks about, but it's amazing, Leith's, but it's so expensive that I just didn't have the money for that. So I went to a cookery school that's now sadly closed, because the old couple that ran it have retired. But it was really great. It was a month of kind of basics all the way through, really. And then
here in London?
No, it was in Gloucester.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's called the Gables in Gloucester. And yeah, it was great.
I know it. I'm from Gloucestershire.
Ah, okay. So have you heard of it?
Yes, I have. Yes, but I've not been there. But I was just interested and intrigued as to where you went because, you know, everyone, as you say, leaves, but you still did very well there and you learned all that you wanted to learn because you
Yeah,
naturally had food within you and you've grown up in a family that have grown their own vegetables and then your mother's cooked. So it's
yeah,
been,
definitely. And I think that I also learnt so much in those years working on the magazines with and writing with the chefs and doing these features where I'd go into the kitchen and, you know, see what they were cooking and talk to them about ingredients. You know, I basically had constant tutorials in a
yes,
sense, and
you were having
so
live
I,
demos.
yeah, exactly, and incredibly privileged access like that. So I felt like the whole kind of trajectory was an education, and not just that cookery course, but that definitely the spending the time actually, you know, cooking and washing up every day, and learning how to properly work from recipes in that disciplined way that you don't when you're cooking at home on your own. You know, it was really helpful and useful, and it also meant that I had a good grounding, so that when I did go into food styling, which was another kind of area that I went into after that, you know, I felt confident to cook those recipes. And that was some advice that I got from Sarah Cook, who used to be at BBC Good Food magazine, because I went to talk to her and I said, look, I want to be more hands-on with the food side of things as well as the writing, because I became increasingly interested in it. And she said, really, you need to do a course and get that grounding so that you can then do food styling as well.
Yes. And were you
And that was,
working on your own food or were you working at BBC Good Food styling for other people or freelance?
so I wasn't working there. She was very kind and had a chat with me. And then after that, I did start food styling. And it was initially a kind of, I did it with a friend, my friend Helen, who is the photographer that I work with a lot, who's brilliant. And we did a kind of test shoot to see whether I could do it. And then from there, we used those photos to send them out. And then I just did freelance food styling jobs.
Okay. So you were bold enough and strong enough to knock on people's door and say, hello, I can do this. And I can write, I can cook, I can style. And doors just opened and it came together.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the doors just open. Like
Well,
I definitely, when I first moved to London, off the back of the Leeds Guide, I spent so many hours emailing and knocking on doors and trying to understand how I could, you know, because there were no jobs at all really. That there were recruitment freezes across the board in media. So I was trying to find ways of kind of deepening my own knowledge and making sure that I had strings to my bow. And actually, food was amazing because there are so many ways you can work with it, and it's such a creative industry,
yeah.
that I, you know, the minute I sort of opened myself up to the other side of it, which was actually working with food hands on, it gave me more things that I could do, which was important at that time, you know, and still is. And actually now, you know, I'm so glad I went down that route, because I
Yeah.
I have always been more hands-on anyway as a person than academic, even though I enjoy writing. I
Yeah.
love doing things physically as well.
Yeah. Because you
Um,
also did loads of pop-ups, didn't you?
yeah, I did a lot of that. And I actually, I mean, I started off assisting. Do you know Yuan Lu, the Vietnamese chef and
Yes.
food writer?
Yeah.
Um, and she's incredible, and she's got this brilliant supper club. And she sort of was really inspiring to me because she was a chef and she had a supper club, and she also wrote recipes, and she also, you know, she had at the time she was having people to her house and cooking up these amazing feasts for paying guests, but she also did food styling. So she had this kind of really diverse career, and I went and worked with her for a while as her assistant. And she shared so much with me, and she was a real mentor for me and just so helpful. And in general, I've found people in food that I've worked with have been very open and very generous in terms of sharing things, and sharing knowledge. And I mean, do you think that seems to be the case?
I think it wasn't years ago. It was I had some bad experiences, But
Did
now
you?
I think everyone wants everyone to have a good time. We're like a tribe who help each other. And you love helping people, you love introducing people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's your network, and we all have this big network, and we're very happy together. I don't think we're competitive. We all have found our own little place, and we just get on with it because our one passion is our creativity and food.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I would say to anyone that wants to get into it, you know, do just have a go, and go and try and learn with people, and that's what I did, like fitting it in around a full-time job as well, and trying to, you know, trying to make enough money at that age as well, when you're just really struggling to and yeah, like Ewan was incredible, and such an amazing inspiration. And then I worked with a few friends who were caterers and chefs, and then I basically thought, right, let's give this a go and do some pop-ups. And they were fun, you know, they were fun, but they're also kind of very stressful if you're not used to cooking on a scale, you know, because
Yeah.
if you're a home cook and you're writing recipes for people at home, you're doing things on a kind of, you know, the maximum you might do is a recipe for say 8 or 10 people. But when you're scaling it up, you know, it is hard. But I had some amazing experiences. I did 2 residencies at Carousel in
Oh,
Marylebone,
yeah.
which now, like looking back, I sort of think, what was I thinking? Because I'm not a chef, you know, I'm very much a food writer and a cookbook author, someone that writes recipes, but I don't run services of restaurants in central London. But that's the brilliant thing about Carousel, is that their whole model is that they kind of support you, and they have a whole team of chefs, and you collaborate with them and you cook together. And you know, so it was amazing but very stressful. And but you know, great thing to do, and
And
it
it's
really gave me.
exciting. That sort of stress is like an adrenaline that rushes around your body. It gives you a
Yeah.
real kick of excitement, sort of at the end of the night, the other side of it, when you come
Oh my
down.
gosh, the buzz. I remember walking back from service to the tube and just being like walking on air, just feeling like this I totally understood how, you know, how people get that buzz from cooking professionally on that level. But I don't think I have the stress. Like, I think I don't deal with stress well enough to be able
Okay.
to do that on that scale, at least, you know,
Yeah.
50 people in the room.
Now, listen,
But
I
yeah.
have a question for you. It was your wedding anniversary yesterday, so very many congratulations, your second wedding anniversary. Will you share with
Third.
us third, sorry, third.
Mm,
Will you share with us what you had at your wedding to eat?
yes, definitely. I had, well, we were trying to do it on a budget, so because we wanted to have as many of our friends and family as we could, and everyone knows how expensive it all is. But so I wanted to do it in at the same time as asparagus season, because I love asparagus, and I'm from Kent, and I think that Kent asparagus is the tastiest. So we had well, shall I take you through? First of all, we had the ceremony, and then we had oysters.
Oh,
Because I always, I mean, that just felt like such a luxurious thing to do, to have oysters. But I met this amazing oyster um, catcher. I would you call him an oyster catcher? Like, he's an oyster.
farmer,
Yeah, well, no, but he doesn't farm them. So he is one of the
but he's the
owners of.
gatherer.
Yeah, gatherer is the right word. So he's called Ranger, and his company is Falmouth Oysters. And he sort of collects these oysters in an old wooden sailing boat that he converted in the Falmouth estuary there during native oyster season. And there's nothing he doesn't know about oysters. And I met him actually writing a piece for The Guardian, and we stayed in touch. And I got in touch with him when I was planning my wedding, and then I sort of said, you know, I really want to have oysters at my wedding. What would the sort of cost be, etc. And he basically, I think, did me a really good deal. And so he came up from Cornwall with all these amazing Cornish oysters, and we had those. And he set up this. His partner Hannah also helped, and she set up this bar with, like, you know, vinaigrettes, all different things like horseradish and cucumber and all these different, so you could help yourself to the different vinaigrettes. And
That's
he opened all the
lovely.
oysters. I mean, it was such a dream. And then we had my mum's friend, Ralph, who is a chef and a caterer, and also a drag act called Pussy Galore. And he did the little snacks. So we had the oysters from Ranger, and then Ralph did these amazing like crab on toast and little Yorkshire puddings with beef and horseradish and mackerel pate. Just really good, kind of really good. Because I don't love canapes. I'm more of a kind of, I want a significant like morsel to eat. I don't like little frou-frou kind of
no, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and then I thought, well, let's have just platters of asparagus. So when we got to the actual reception, we had platters of asparagus, Kent asparagus from the local farm here that are just amazing, covered in just butter and lemon, and people just eating them with their fingers. And then we had pork pies from Fortnum and Mason, just cut up on a chopping board with different mustards, because I love mustard. So we had like English mustard, whole grain and Dijon, and Fortnum and Mason pork pies, which were incredible. And then we had a fish and chip van. So we had fish and chips, and that was it. And then I think when everyone was really drunk at about midnight, we had bacon butties or cheese butties if you're vegetarian.
That sounds fantastic. I love the sound of that. All washed down with an awful lot of wine and champagne.
Oh, of course. I bought so much champagne from Marks and Spencer's that the next day we just didn't stop drinking champagne, because at the last minute I panicked and I was like, oh, I think I should buy some more, because I didn't want to, I didn't want people not to have enough. And then the next day we just had loads. It was great.
Oh, it sounds very familiar to mine. When I got married years ago, we went to France and bought loads of champagne, and we had it in my parents' garden, and we put lots of wheelbarrows with ice and just whole bottles of champagne around the garden, because everyone because it was sort of a bit of a self-service one before we sat down. And about 3 years later, my mother found one of these a full bottle of champagne in the hedge that someone had hidden in one part of the garden. And over the course of about 10 years after, she found 5 bottles altogether that were full.
So stashed away. Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. But it was great fun, and it was very organic, and we loved it, and it was fine. But just tell me the name of your oyster supplier.
So it's Falmouth Oysters. Fal Oyster. He's at Fal Oyster on Instagram.
Okay,
I'm gonna...
Because I just love the story. I'm sure you saw the story on the Cornish fishermen, but there's the oysters. They did something on one of the oyster catchers down there, and they're only allowed to go on these sailing boats up and down the Fal. There's no engines allowed in the oyster season. And it was this guy and his sister catching them. And it was just like, that's how produce should be gathered sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And they have to be super careful about the seasonality of the fishery as well, and collecting it at the right time. I can't remember the exact dates for the native oyster season, but they're only available between certain months. They have such exquisite flavor, just so mineral, and more interesting to me than a rock oyster, although I love rock oysters as well. We actually had rock oysters at the wedding because the natives weren't seasoned, but they're just amazing, his oysters.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I love the idea of that. And I just want to know, market life for Borough Kitchen, what do you do there?
So I had a recipe column with Market Life every issue, but that ended at the beginning of this year. I think I did it for like a year and a half, and then they had a bit of a reshuffle, and they shook it up. But now I write more kind of written through pieces for them. So I've written a few of their kind of recipe features, seasonal ingredient features. So talking about a particular ingredient and a particular produce that you can get from the market, and kind of doing a bit of a deep dive into that. So that's been really nice. I've written about light cheese for them recently, and peaches. So I love that magazine. It's such a brilliant magazine.
It is. And I love also your great respect for vegetables and how from seeds they come forth and flourish and give us food. You're really connected to your gardening, aren't you? Do you have a garden?
No, we don't, but we have an allotment.
Okay.
So yeah, so we were super lucky to get an allotment, and yeah, that's been an absolute kind of game changer, and a really interesting journey. And I mean, when you try and grow your own vegetables, you realize what, how impossible it is. And I'll never forget having a chat with our neighbour on the allotment, and we're such novices, when we first got it, and we still are, but we're learning. You learn all the time in cooking and in growing. That's what's so amazing about it. But I was chatting to them, and I was like, when did you get to the point where you're growing enough to live off? And they were just like, never. That's not what this is about. Don't expect to be able to be self-sufficient. Like, the majority of the stuff gets eaten by slugs or
Yes.
birds or whatever, the wildlife, and you have to learn to share it. And it was just kind of that moment of, yeah, you're right, I'm never going to be able to grow enough produce for myself, probably. And it just makes you realize how hard farmers and growers work, and particularly the ones that are working with no chemicals or
Mm.
pesticides, and who are working with real respect for the soil and the biodiversity, of the natural habitats and environments. They're just amazing. They're
They are
so incredible.
amazing. Their knowledge, and it's sort of every year they learn and learn and learn. Like your father was a keen gardener, wasn't he? And he grew a
Yeah,
lot of vegetables. So you must have
he
learned
was.
something from him.
I think I was too young, to be honest, Fran. I
Okay.
was just more interested in like crouching next to him, picking peas off the pod and like playing with the frogs and toads.
Okay. So it was a playground of fun. Oh, we've frozen.
Yeah,
There we
sorry,
are.
it's
You're
saying
back
I'm
again.
on low battery, but I am charging it. Sorry, just give me a sec. I am charging it
Okay.
here. It should be okay.
Are you happy
Um,
to keep talking? Because I've got so much I still want to ask you, if that's okay.
yeah, sorry, I'm aware I'm really verbose. I sort of like
No, you're not.
start
It's
talking.
lovely. It's lovely. Is it charging up? Is it okay?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is charging. It should be. If it goes blank, then we'll have to start again. But it should be charging,
Okay.
because it's connected to my laptop. But yeah, my dad grew lots of veg, and I don't think I learned about the actual process of growing, but I definitely learned about the value, and the wonder of fresh vegetables as a child, and I think that's stayed with me for sure.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And we were talking earlier on about restaurants and your pop-ups and adrenaline and all the rest of it. Now, you do quite a bit of Saturday morning TV and Sunday morning, so that must give you an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Tell us about
It's
cooking on TV. How's it work? Are there lots of takes, or is it just straightforward?
Well, I've only ever cooked on Saturday Kitchen, which is live, but it's brilliant because they have an incredible team, and they have an amazing home ec called Michaela, who is just all over it. And you rehearse as well in the morning before you go live, and it is nerve wracking. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The times I've been on it, I have been very nervous, because Saturday Kitchen is such a legendary show, and it's something that I've always watched and I love watching. And the idea of going on there as me, a cookery writer, I'm not a Michelin star chef, I'm not, you know, was very daunting. And I think sometimes the nerves sort of can get in the way of that being able to enjoy it. But actually, because they're such a great team and they prepare you so well and they rehearse you, and you have support from the cookery team, it is, they make it as easy as possible for you. But it doesn't mean that it's not nerve wracking, because it obviously is, because there's a lot of
Jules,
jeopardy.
well, you obviously
You can
cope with it very well, because Jules the foodie has just said, and all the work you do at the festivals, that's very, very live.
Hi, Jules. Hello. I'm missing you. But yes, we yeah, the live stuff at the festivals is but the thing about doing stuff live, and it's like doing this live, is that it's stuff happens, it's real life. And I think people love that about Saturday Kitchen, because they know it's live, and they know things can go wrong, and we're all human and things happen. So that's the fun of it. Do you mind, speaking of live, do you mind if I just let my husband in, because he's waiting outside? He's just walked the
Absolutely.
dog.
Go and let your husband in, and I'll just talk with. Oh, and go on. That's fine. Isn't this fantastic? I just think Rosie is such an open book, sharing everything with us and sort of inviting us into the way she thinks about food. And I love the way that she has come from one background and then she's now ended up into this career, which we found out of about 4 of our chefs. They all went to university and did degrees, and then they're self-taught chefs. So you don't know what life's going to throw at you, and you have to accept it.
Can you
and,
take your internet off the phone? Hi.
Okay, welcome
Sorry.
back. Welcome back, Rosie. This is
Hello.
fantastic. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Thank you very much. So all of that live, but then you also have, so you've set up very cleverly a shoot kitchen in London, which you hire out as a studio, don't you?
Yeah. So so my kitchen, we've actually just redone it, which is nice. We just painted it all green because it was white, and I wanted some color in there. But yeah, so my kitchen is can be hired out as well for shoots and things like that, and it just makes sense to combine them.
Yeah, and is this your home kitchen or it's a studio kitchen?
Yeah, it's my home kitchen.
Okay, yeah, so it's part of your house. How fantastic.
Yeah.
So you have some fun days there where you might be cooking in there, or otherwise you might have someone else in, one of your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's available if anyone wants to hire it. I mean, obviously not at the moment, but but yeah, it's no, it's nice. We've had some fun in there, and I used to do a YouTube channel with my friend Pete, who's moved to America, probably to get away from me. But yeah, we used to shoot in there together, and that was always really good. It's a really light space, so it's nice.
You see, you're pretty amazing, I have to say, because you just said you did media studies in A-level, but you were one of the first people, I think, to embrace the multi-platform of communications. With you just mentioning YouTube there, you know, you early on took to Twitter and took to Instagram, and you've created a community and a sort of channel of your own, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been so interesting because as I've been, progressing through my career, these technologies have come along that have made sharing inspiration and enthusiasm and knowledge around food so much more interactive and kind of instantaneous. And I guess I've taken my editorial background in publishing and the stuff I've learned there, and I apply it now to I'd say less so to Twitter, but definitely to Instagram, because Instagram, it's just great. I've learned so much I've met so many people on Instagram, and it's given me a real platform for photography, which is something that I always loved, but I never had an outlet for apart from my blog. So yeah, it's been amazing to have these technologies come along that have sort of supported a lot of the creative work that people are doing in food and other industries as well.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. But you've been able to, as you say, with your photography and your wordsmith and your just ability to be excited and passionate about food or something in nature, just sharing it with people. It's brilliant.
It's a strange compulsion though, isn't it? Like I've always been one to document, even before any of this, even before Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, I was always the one with the camera taking pictures of like everything. And I think it's because I've got a really bad memory. So the way I remember is visual. And even when I was writing, I always take pictures to refer to later on, almost like taking notes. I take notes as well, but I always take pictures because I find pictures really evocative and triggering for memories. And I've always documented everything. It's really odd. And now like Instagram makes that even more of a thing because you can just share all the time. I try not to share all the time. I try and rein myself in a bit because I mean no one wants to know. I don't want to overshare is what I'm saying. So I try and
I don't think you do. I think people are enjoying it.
I don't want to spend my whole life on Instagram or on screen either. It's it's nice to have to be able to step away from the phone
Yes.
I think that's something that anyone who's on the platform has to kind of grapple with a lot of the time.
Yeah. And tell us about your amazing appointment that you got at the beginning of the year, contributing a monthly column to the Sunday Times.
Yes, that was really brilliant.
That's
And
superb.
you know, a lifetime, a career's dream really to have that opportunity. Yeah, and it sort of came off the back of my book, The Joyful Home Cook, because that we did a cook. You know, the Sunday Times Food has a really lovely interactive cookbook club.
Yes.
And so they take certain authors and certain books, and they ask the community that are on there to cook from it and share it on Facebook and Instagram. And they did that with my book when it came out, and it was really lovely actually, because one of the most amazing things about this job is seeing people cooking recipes and making things. And they did that with the book, and it, you know, lots of people were cooking from it. So I think that kind of came off the back of that, which was great. And
It's
it's lovely
such a
because
beautiful name, The Joyful Home Cook. Did you come up with that?
well, I can't take full credit. It was Katia Shipster, my publisher, and I together brainstorming endlessly to try and come up with a name, because names are always the trickiest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was definitely Katia as much as it was me. In fact, it may have been more Katia. But yeah, it when we came to it, I was like, I knew it wanted to be a home cook thing, and it wanted to be joyful, and that was just kind of perfect for that, because it sort of does what it says on the tin. So
Yes, and it also is very inviting for people to buy it or to open it, to look at it, because if you're enjoying your cooking or you're a home cook and you're wanting some new skills, it's sort of like, this book is tempting because it actually says what I want to do is have joy in my kitchen.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. I think that's what I wanted to do, was kind of try and tap into that, you know, that the fact that cooking can be this really joyful, meditative thing, and it doesn't have to be stressful. It can and it doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to put all this pressure on yourself all the time for it to be some like epic gourmet meal. Sometimes, I mean, the simplicity of cooking something for someone else is a joy. And I think it was about saying to people like, that's enough. And if you're looking at seasonality and working in tune with that, then it sort of, the rest kind of happens, and learning things that arm you with ideas that you can, so it's not being prescriptive. It's like, once you've made this once, you can then do this, that, and the other with it.
Yeah.
And that's the encouraging tone that I want to take, really.
That's really nice. I'm having lots of really nice comments about your wild garlic scones that were in the Times. I know the season's just come to the end, but you did advise people to put some in their freezer, didn't you, in various guises?
Yeah, definitely. Get it in the freezer, stash it away for later. Yeah, they were a lovely one actually, and yeah, lots of people making those. So it's quite cool to see people cooking with wild garlic, because I wanted to put wild garlic recipes in the book, and that was a couple of years ago that I was writing it. And definitely in the last year, I've seen such an especially this year, and it must have been to do with the situation and everything, and people having a bit more time. But yeah, there's been a lot of cooking with wild garlic going on.
But someone, I can't remember who it was, they said, if I see one more picture of wild garlic on Instagram, and it just made me laugh.
Yeah.
I said, don't be so ungreen. It's brilliant. It's seasonal. It's the moment.
Yeah, it's like wild garlic and sourdough has been doing the rounds on Instagram the past few months.
But isn't the one good thing about this is that it's got everyone back into their kitchens. It's got them cooking. It's given them time, and maybe they've made friends and they've ventured into other realms of cooking rather than just their sedentary 5 meals that they know work.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And I think it's that connection. I think one of the best things to come out of this, you know, this situation, it's obviously terribly sad in so many ways, is that I think people are connecting more with their food. And I think the fact that so many of the suppliers that usually supply restaurants, you know, very sadly that business has stopped for them at the moment. But the fact that they've pivoted and adapted, and they're selling into households and people at home is brilliant, because people are suddenly realizing the quality of produce that we have here and that you can get hold of, you know, at home. And it doesn't always have to be the same supermarket and the same shopping basket. You know, there's so much more. And I think that's a really positive thing. You know, the more we can connect with food and understand that food is part of this big system, and the stories behind it, and the people that work so hard to put it on our plates, that I think the better, really.
Definitely. And this has given the suppliers an opportunity to put restaurant food that we have to cook into our houses. And,
yeah, exactly.
You know, and don't put yourself under pressure if it's not as good as the restaurant, because that's not the meaning of it. It's just your produce starting point is amazing quality, and then have fun with it. Yeah.
And it's
Can
not
I
like
ask you?
We're going to. Sorry,
no, go on. Say, what were you saying?
well, I was just going to say, it's not like we're going to stop going to restaurants when we can again. I think everyone is so excited, and it's about keeping that supply chain going and making sure that these suppliers are there at the other side. And that's why supporting them at the moment is so important, because so many of them have just had their business taken away so quickly. And if we can just keep them going until they can get back into the restaurants on the other side of this, then that would be brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you're cooking at home in your joyful kitchen, what's your sort of one lovely piece of equipment, kitchen tool that you always use or love, or just?
I mean, I use my knife. My knife and my chopping board are the main thing. And actually having a sharp knife is such a game changer. I remember when I did my first when my first book came out. Do you know Callum Franklin from the Rosewood, amazing chef? And I'd done a story with him and Matt Chatfield from the Cornwall Project down in Cornwall, talking about all the incredible growers and producers that were kind of being driven into London by Matt, the Cornwall Project. Check him out on Instagram. And so I got to know Callum, and he brought to my book launch a gorgeous Japanese knife. And having a real professional chef knife, I mean, obviously you need to watch your fingers and get your claw going and make sure that your knife skills are okay. But yeah, having just a sharp knife that cuts through things and is robust and you can use it every day, I think that's such an important thing. And the minute you have a sharp knife, you realize how hard it was without one.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you sharpen yours on a whetstone?
Yeah, so I've got some beautiful knives from Kin, the Kin knife guys, who are just fantastic. And when this all kicked off and I couldn't, because normally at the food festivals, I'm Kin are there, whether I'm doing Pub in the Park or the Good Food Show. Obviously that stuff's not happening at the moment, but I usually go to them. I'm like, can you sharpen my knives? They're blunt, and they do it for me. But yeah, I got a whetstone from them so that I could do it myself, but they're still not as sharp as they should be. So I think I'm probably, I think I'm getting the hang of it. But they're not as sharp as if they'd done it.
Yeah, no, it's something we don't do enough of, but when you do it, they're fantastic, because they just cut through things with such grace and ease. A good knife is the starting point. And what's your favourite foodie inspired film, TV show, book, Rosie?
Oh my gosh, well, I'm really ashamed to say I'm only just reading it, but I'm obsessed with Patience Gray at the moment. Honey from a Weed.
Yes, I have read it, because when I wrote the Ginger Pig book, Tim Wilson introduced me to it.
Oh, amazing. I love the Ginger Pig book, by the way. That is a brilliant book. I love all the stuff about the different cuts. That's such a helpful book. But yeah, my mum bought it for me, and I've had it for a while, and I haven't had loads of time on my hands, and then I got this time to, because normally I read fiction, because I don't just want to be food 24/7. But yeah, it's so beautifully written. It's for anyone that hasn't read Patience Gray. She was this pioneering food writer, and her partner was a marble sculptor and worked in Puglia and Naxos in Greece and in Catalonia, and they travel around together and they live this kind of nomadic lifestyle. And she basically documents all these beautiful recipes that she gets from the local people you know, the regions that she's in, the not fishmongers, the fishermen, and these kind of rustic country folk that she talks about, and she just documents these recipes, but she writes the narrative so beautifully. It's like the most beautiful writing.
It's evocative, and you feel you're there with her.
Yes, you do, which is very important right now.
Very much. Yeah, that's
the
your escapism.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, Rosie, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, and thanks for giving us so much time. And good luck. Keep enjoying your cooking. Enjoy your rhubarb and elderflower cake that you made yesterday.
I've been enjoying that too much.
Well, it looked beautiful. Everyone follow Rosie. She's foodie at Rosie. Rosie at foodie? Which way round?
Yeah, just Rosie Foodie.
Thank you for putting me right.
Yeah.
And
you,
when's your next article out in the Times?
So it's coming out next Sunday. So I just sent the proofs today. So yeah, it's coming out next Sunday.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to seeing that. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.